like that.
And how much weight have you lost?
You know, I worked for 10 days straight from daylight until after dark, cutting, burning stuff. I didn't lose a pound. I'm like, come on.
You were eating.
I had cancer a few years back, and ever since I had prostate cancer, ever since I had two last taken out, I just gained weight. My doctor went down just after it is. So I'm thinking I'm gonna start doing the pill.
All right, I'm gonna call us to order.
Yeah.
Joe, will you turn on the
Okay.
mic? Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage Council meeting to order. It's July 30th at 8:30. Thank you all for coming. The first order of business is to review and approve the agenda. Any discussion?
We want to roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of us. We need to do a roll call.
Hartwell.
I'm here.
Hartwell present. Shara. Baird. Baird present. Representative Burkle.
Burkle present.
Burkle present. Eggerling.
Here.
Eggerling present. Senator Herr. Kaharski.
Here.
Kaharski present. Senator Lang.
Present.
Senator Lang present. Palmer.
Here.
Palmer present. Saxhog.
Here.
Saxhog present. Suss.
Here.
Suss present. Representative Vang.
Present.
Representative Vang present. Mr. Chair, there are 10 members present.
Great, thank you. I'll try to watch the agenda more closely, Tom. First of all, for those of you on Zoom, I apologize. I unplugged my computer this morning. I picked up my briefcase and I came without my computer. So Mark and I are sharing a computer. So I'll attempt to see you. If for some reason I miss your hand up, just speak up and let me know. Now, Ted's motion to approve the agenda is on the table with no corrections that I'm seeing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd love to have a motion to approve the minutes that were in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion? We don't do seconds. Not in the legislature. Different set of rules. Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Reports of conflicts of interest. I'm going to put that off until we get to item 6, where we can have a bigger discussion about it, because we have a number of conflicts or perceived conflicts that have come up that we need to discuss. And we'll do that under item 6. My comments are just thanks to everyone for reading your books, for doing your scores, for getting them in. I know it's a lot of work, but I know now that you all understand the proposals that we're having in front of us as we begin our process of recommending an allocation. I have nothing else really to report. Mark, do you have any comments?
I do not at this point. We can go right into the next item.
All right, well, let's go to conflicts of interest. So as part of the allocation process, as you're reading, we've asked everybody to declare conflicts. We had 5 people who disclosed conflicts of or perceived conflicts of one type or another. And I'll just start with myself. I was reading a proposal and I'm the chair of Bellwin, and lo and behold, the Audubon proposal says they might do work on Bellwin. So therefore I'm conflicted on that. Just so everyone knows, I won't participate or vote on that. Daryl, you had a conflict that you
I had been approached a couple of years ago by the Audubon Society about doing some work on some of my properties. And during my tornado stuff, they decided that, gee, this was an opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, per se. And so they have a project that they are doing for me now. So I disclosed mine.
all right? Thank you.
Is it part of, is it part of the proposal?
It is a different county than their proposal. So I disclosed it and said, you know, they've got a project in other counties other than Crow Wing. And so I disclosed it. I just felt that I was gonna be receiving funding from them. So since it was an entity that was before us, I felt it appropriate. I scored it and I submitted my scoring and then also submitted a scoring or submitted a sheet with conflict of interest on those spots.
And just to be clear for new people, when someone has a conflict, the total score is divided by the number of people that are voting on it versus the total number of council members. So in the case of Audubon, the divider was 10, not 12, based on the conflict. I think your conflict may or may not be a conflict. You're comfortable declaring it as a conflict, as I am, which I think is the right thing to do. But it's on the edge of conflict.
Yeah.
So,
I'm receiving funding from that organization, which when I read the conflict of interest stuff, it
Yep.
said, if you're receiving funding, so I'm like, I'm gonna be,
Yep.
so.
we appreciate your disclosure.
Mr.
Matt?
Chairman,
Yes,
would you fill me in on what Bellwin is?
Bellwin is a 1,500 acre holding of land that runs various programs in Washington County. Environmental education for St. Paul Public Schools, ball fields, we run bison. We have a astronomical observatory.
Okay, very good.
All right,
He's on the board.
Matt, you had a potential conflict, which I don't think was a conflict, but you wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to disclose it. I actually have two habitat diversification projects in western Minnesota that I'm getting grants for. One of them is for down in Brown County at the grants through Bowser. And the other is a grant, an easement diversification project where the funds are coming from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, University of Minnesota, and it's being administered by Pheasants Forever, which of course has some applications, but no funding that's through Lessard-Sams.
And you voted on the proposals, but declared it as a perceived conflict.
Exactly. Yes.
If anyone feels like that's too much of a conflict, we should have that discussion. Okay, thank you for disclosing it. John, I know you have a perceived conflict as well.
Right. Thank you, David, and thanks for the phone call. We discussed it for a bit. I just want to make everyone aware of the potential for maybe a perceived conflict of interest, and it has more to do with the Rosa Lake restoration project that was in the pack. I think the Rosa Lake phase 3 or 4, if I remember right. But we did not approve the accomplishment plan last meeting, and as I was thinking about things and considering that, I thought I should at least disclose the fact that there's a lawsuit happening and I have family involved in that lawsuit. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Thanks to Mark and Ben, Janelle for their input. I got the impression from the emails chain, and you probably saw that in your packet. If you haven't, take a look. But I don't know if there's an organizational conflict of interest, and definitely there's no direct financial interest in the project. But I just wanted it disclosed, want everyone to know about it, and balance the needs to just responsibly represent my constituents and at the same time promote the good work the council's doing. So I don't feel necessarily there is a conflict of interest, but there could be that perception. I just wanted to lay it out there.
Anyone feel like there's a conflict there that should prevent John from participating? There was a memo in your packet.
Yeah, correct. Mr. Chair, this is Mark, the Executive Director. I did put into the packets a memo from House and Senate nonpartisan legal that kind of reviewed that situation and said that they did not feel that Representative Burkle had a conflict, but it was good to disclose. And I think each of these are really good to disclose, whether they become or deemed actual conflict or not.
Okay. Being no comments, we'll assume it's been disclosed and you can continue to participate should you choose to, John. Ted, you had a perceived conflict.
Yeah, this would clearly be in the area of perceived. I'm involved as an officer and director of Friends of the Minnesota Valley. And it's our intent to apply for a COP grant from money previously recommended previously appropriated, but just thought I would put it on the table in case there's an issue. I suspect that someone could perceive that the person in DNR that's looking at our grant application this year might feel, because of my role here, some pressure to approve something they might not otherwise approve.
Yeah,
That's that.
sure.
Yeah.
And we've had this situation before, and the decision has been that because we're not involved in the decisions, we don't have those conflicts, but appreciate the disclosure. And Mark, you want to follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some more background on that, and David is absolutely correct. Back in 2013 was the first time that I saw it on the records with the council, where a council member had said a potential or perceived conflict of interest. And actually, it was the chair, Chair Hartwell at the time, who was on the Bellwin board. And Bellwin was potentially going to be the recipient of a CPL grant. They were going to be applying. So he brought that up as a potential or as a perceived conflict, potentially. The council discussed it at that time and decided that the CPL grants program, and this is good for everybody to know, but the CPL grants program is not run by this council. The council makes recommendation for the funding, and then the legislature appoints it or funds it to whatever degree. But the DNR actually runs the CPL program so everybody knows that for the record. And all of those grants that come through CPL are approved by the commissioner. So if there is a conflict, then it's up to the commissioner to catch that conflict. It's good that we bring them up here as perceived or whatever, but the DNR has an obligation to search for and find those conflicts as well. So there's another layer of another layer of observation and scrutiny before the funds go out. And that's why the council in 2013 said it should not be a conflict.
Are there any other conflicts that anyone wants to discuss or disclose? Great. I appreciate everyone disclosing it. It's the right thing to do. We want to make sure what we're doing has the light of day and there are no questions about what we're doing. Hearing nothing else, we'll move to discussion of the approval of the accomplishment plan of the Big Swamp North peatland restoration project.
You take that one.
And I will turn it over to Mark.
All right. And I know that Representative Burkle will have some feedback in this as well, but Mr. Chair and members, just to remind you, at the last meeting in June, all of the accomplishment plans were approved with the exception of this one. And the reason it was delayed until this meeting was so that there could be further information gathered. Representative Burkle had brought up the point that there was some public discomfort and stuff, especially, maybe that's a nice way to put it. There's also the lawsuit that he had mentioned that his father-in-law is involved in against the watershed board. And so there was a number of different questions about how things were going and were things being taken care of and was the public being informed, et cetera. And from that, I believe we do have Tracy Halstensgaard, who is going to be attending with us today.
Yeah, but
Not
I
yet?
do
Okay.
believe she plans to join.
We are ahead of schedule. So in your packets, there is an email that came in from her. Actually, I got a draft of this last week before she headed off on a short weekend vacation. And then yesterday we got the final, but it's in your packet dated June 31st. It mentions that the county is the jurisdictional authority for the ditches in the project area. And they held a public meeting on July 9th to hear landowners' concerns about the project. There was also one-on-one follow-up with individual landowners in the 2 weeks following the meetings. And also some of the concerns are centered around relationships with DNR. I don't know if you're aware, but sometimes in the outreaches of the state, for one reason or another, and in this area, it's that way. DNR does not necessarily have the best reputation at times with the local community. So that's my own interjection in that. As you know, the Red River Watershed District has had several successful partnership project with the DNR. Unfortunately, the relationship between the county and DNR still has some tension. There have been some efforts in the last month to work through these issues and as well, including DNR representatives attending the July 22nd Roseau County Board meeting. Everything seems to be moving in the right direction at this on this front. The project team will continue to meet and work through these concerns as well as keep all stakeholders involved. Before you ask Representative Burkle, Mr. Chair, I should mention that I did talk to Tracy at the end of last week, and she said she seems to find that a lot of the tension has been not dissolved, but somewhat relieved. And their relationship with DNR has become better. DNR really took a serious act and had a regional supervisor and I think an area supervisor come in and meet with the people at these meetings. So there was real active uptake by DNR in this, and Representative Burkle may know more.
John, do you want to add anything?
I can fill in a few blanks, but really Mark just covered everything to a T. I attended both the July 9th and July 22nd meeting at the county. I do think the conversation and the communication's in a much better place. And I think, given where this moves with the county, I think we're at a point where, the money was appropriated. The accomplishment plan should be approved today and we move along and let the county work out the details with the DNR. But I think we're at that point now.
All right, is there a motion to approve the accomplishment plan?
Move that we approve the accomplishment.
Suzanne moves the approval of the accomplishment plan. Any comments, discussion?
Yes, I would just question that, until they have a final resolution, is that normal that we approve funding for a project when they're having problems coming to agreements?
The precedent in the past, and the one I remember is down in Rochester, they made a request for funds, the funds were granted, and then a local group said, hey, we don't like this project. And we said, it's gone through the legislature. This is something you need to work out locally. This is not for us to get in the middle of a dispute between parties in the local community. If we held up funding for every project where someone objected, we'd spend no money. There are people who don't want restoration to take place next to them. So our position has been that if it's complying with law and properly appropriated, if there's an issue on the local level, they should work it out on the local level, and we shouldn't be the arbitrator of that dispute.
I guess I would just think that they're having communications, that's a good thing. And if they were coming up with an agreement, then once they had the agreement done, we'd move forward. But
if the
I don't
group
wanna get away with
knows,
a project that's already
yeah.
been approved, so.
the problem with that is if someone knows that we can hold it up till there's an agreement, all it takes is one person to never agree, which puts us in a position we probably don't want to be in.
And we tend to score the proposals on the merit of the
The
project.
merit, is it a good restoration
If we
project?
wait, then there's this linear process that ends up being, you end up holding the money back and can't get the project moving forward when there is an agreement because we have to wait for the next meeting.
Make sense?
I'll go along with that for right now.
All right.
If we see more of those come along the way, and I guess I'll.
Luckily, they've been
from
rare.
there. Yeah, that would be my expectation, but at least
Yeah, it's a good question.
my business world would say, I'm not gonna give them the funding until they have worked out their problems, but different set of circumstances.
All right, any other comments? Joe?
Mr. Chair, just maybe to add on to that too. Just because somebody gets an appropriation, you still have to follow all permit requirements and public notification of that. So just because you get OHF funding doesn't mean that supersedes all the other things that are in place.
Great.
A learning process for me.
Yes, indeed. Tom, call the roll, please.
Members starting with number 10 on our list, Saxhog.
Yes.
Saxhog, aye. Suss.
Good.
Suss.
Yes.
Suss, aye.
Don't have
Representative
my
Vang,
Hearing aids and I'm deaf.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Hartwell,
Yes.
Hartwell, aye. Baird,
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle,
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Eggerling,
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Koharski,
Aye.
Koharski, aye. Senator Lang,
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Palmer,
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 10 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, the motion passes. Tracy, thanks for coming. We'll move on. You have approval. Start doing good work.
Thank you so much. I apologize for jumping on a little bit late. I
That's all right.
appreciate the council's work. Thank you.
All right. Next, we will move on to item 8, the executive director hiring process, an update to our operating procedures. We have Michelle on the line with us. Rosie's with us in case there are questions beyond that. I will just say that both Mark and I have spent a fair amount of time working with the LCC to come up with a way to ensure the council is involved in the hiring process, but not too involved in the hiring process. So we are not involving the open meeting law and having to do interviews in the public eye, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And we have a recommended modification to our operating procedures, as well as a general update of some of the things that when we went through it, staff flagged as appropriate updates, which is in your packet. Mark, do you have anything to say about this before we turn it over to Michelle?
Let's let Michelle go first.
All right, Michelle, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for being with us and interrupting your vacation.
No problem at all. Good morning, members. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I am the Executive Director of the Legislative Coordinating Commission. My name is Michelle Urich, and as the Executive Director of the LCC, I help to facilitate and coordinate the hiring process for directors of the various offices and commissions at the Minnesota Legislature. I'm hoping that you all can see my screen. Are you able?
We can, thank you.
Wonderful. And so in your packets, you should also have a copy of this. This is the process that Chair Hartwell referred to, that Rosie Lackner, the HR director in the Legislative Coordinating Commission, and I have been working with Chair Hartwell and Director Johnson on. I want to express appreciation to Director Johnson for the duration of time that he is providing to allow for a thorough process to take place, and also allow for some the potential of some knowledge transfer between himself and the next director. The process that is before you today is very similar to processes that were in place when the director was last hired, both in 2009 and 2013, with some slight modifications. I should also mention that this process is very similar to the collaborative process that we do for other offices and commissions also. The Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage Council, in your authorizing statute, you have authority to approve the director. The director is hired by the Legislative Coordinating Commission, and they are a legislative staff person. The proposed process and timeline then involves today's meeting and presenting this to all of you. It also will involve updating the position description with a goal of posting the position in August, later in August. The chair will work to identify members of the council who will volunteer to work in partnership with myself and Rosie, as well as nonpartisan staff in the House and Senate, who will all be part of the screening and interview panel. We will have the position posted. Our goal is to have the position posted by August 25th. And with director level positions, we typically post those positions for 30 days to allow for large scale advertising of the position and large scale recruitment, so that we have a strong applicant pool. The applications will be reviewed to ensure that they meet the minimum qualifications, and then the volunteers from the council and nonpartisan staff in the House and the Senate will work with the LCC to identify candidates to invite in for an interview. We're hoping to conduct first round interviews sometime mid-October. And then after those first round interviews have been conducted, there will be we're hopeful that there will be a strong pool and there will be candidates that will be identified to advance through the process. Those candidates that are advancing after the first round interviews will have a nonpartisan review conducted. That's a review of publicly available information, because this is a nonpartisan position, just to ensure that there's not partisan activities that would be of concern for someone in that role. Then we will also have second round interviews if necessary for candidates. And prior to submission to the council, whether it be one finalist or multiple finalists that those individuals recommend, there will be a criminal background check conducted, as well as review of experience and initial conversations about potential salary, so that at the time candidates are coming before the full council for approval to for the LCC to hire that person as the director, we will have worked through some of those logistical things to ensure that the candidate is a viable candidate. And then the final process will be for the LCC to appoint the director. And our hope is to have a new director in place by the middle of December to allow for, as I mentioned previously, that knowledge transfer between current director Mark Johnson and the new director, with Mark anticipating retirement sometime early in January. And that's an overview of the process. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Matt?
Thank you for that summary. Can you describe a little bit more about what a partisan background review looks like?
Sure. So what we do is we look at publicly available records, like have there been political contributions? Has somebody run for a partisan office? Have they, filed as a candidate with a partisan office? Those are the types of things that we look at.
And maybe just a follow up, if it's a political contribution, is that just noted, or is that disqualify someone? How does that work?
It doesn't necessarily, thanks for that question. It doesn't necessarily disqualify the person. It opens up a conversation. If there's, really substantial political contributions, particularly to candidates in Minnesota, that might be something that the council wants to consider in terms of whether or not the candidate can perform the work in a truly nonpartisan manner. So it's all not, there's not necessarily disqualifiers. It's more of a consideration because it is a nonpartisan role.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So as I look at your schedule, you're looking for at some point in time some volunteers to assist with that. And I don't know what point in time you'll pick that, but
I was going to go there very quickly. I will say the procedural change in front of you is to eliminate the committee in section 3 and instead have a collaborative process with LCC that requires volunteers. And I would take the names of volunteers and work with LCC to decide who would be part of that group. We have to make sure that we don't have a majority of the council or a majority of the executive committee on that informal group, because it will be seen as an official body. So I will call for volunteers and then we'll see if there are 2 volunteers, then it's easy. If there are 8, then we'll have to make some choices and figure it out. Other questions? Mark, do you want to go through the proposed changes to the operating procedure, which would tie in then to the hiring process as outlined by Michelle?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Michelle, thanks for the background and walking through the whole process. There were in Michelle's diligence and her work with the chair, she also was in consultation with nonpartisan legal staff, and they suggested these changes to our operating procedures to help with as things move forward. So in your packets, there is a set of the operating procedures for LSOHC. There are actually only changes proposed on two portions. One is page 1 right at the top where it's the date change. The others are on page 8, sections 3 and 4. So almost the end of the document. Section 3 is the committees, and you can see that Personnel Committee is removed, and it's basically there'd be one segment there, which is committees of Lessard-Sams or of the Lessard Council. And there are only 2 additions which are underlined in that next sentence. So the chair may appoint other council members to committees established by the council. So very simple, but I think it, thankfully to nonpartisan legal staff, it clarifies some things. The other change is in section 4, right below that, and you can see underlining of the addition. There are in subdivision A1, I should say, of section 4. There are no other changes other than that. We did have these highlighted, but in printing, they didn't come out through as highlights. So my apology for that. So very simple, just those couple of changes.
Are there any questions on the changes proposed? Could I get a motion to amend our operating procedures to incorporate the changes as outlined in the document in front of you?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there any comments? Tom, will you call the roll?
Remember, starting with number 11 on our list, Suss.
Yes.
Suss, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Artwell.
Aye.
Artwell, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Herr. Senator Herr.
Senator, aye.
Senator Herr, aye. Kaharski.
Aye.
Kaharski, aye. Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 11 ayes, 0 nays.
Great. We have new operating procedures. Now, I would like to know who would like to or would be willing to volunteer to serve in this informal role with the LCC as we go through the hiring process. So I've got Ted, Suzanne, Daryl, and Matt. Anyone else who's not? Who I missed?
I'd be happy to, but it seems like you have enough, so I don't know. This is Kristen.
Okay, I'll put you down as a question mark.
Okay.
So Rosie and Michelle and I will have a discussion and we'll figure out what we're going to do, but you can kind of get the drift of where we're headed. So thank you all for your willingness to participate and for the changes. And thank you, Rosie. I know Rosie did a lot of work and she had to come over here just waiting for us to ask the tough questions, which we didn't ask her. But thank you for your help. And thank you, Michelle, for interrupting your vacation. We will move on now to item 9, discussion and action of Prairie Recovery Program Phase 3, a TNC request for approval of a minor conveyance granting an access easement to an adjacent landowner. And Joe, you want to set this up?
Mr. Chair and members, so if an organization acquires property, they have to put a notice of funding restriction on the property that make sure that the property is used in accordance with OHF, and part of that prevents anybody from further encumbering the property without getting approval from the council. So that's why TNC is here. TNC acquired some properties in Polk County out by Lake Johanna. We had a field trip out there this spring, which was cool to see, but we actually.
Your mic is.
Yep.
Can you hear it now, Kristen? Can you hear Joe?
Talk some more.
I'm talking.
Yeah, you can't hear you.
Is your mic covered, the mute button?
Test?
There we go.
Much better.
Thank you for letting me know, Kristen.
Excellent. This is a bad mic, I guess. So TNC is here to get approval to further encumber the property because the adjacent neighbor drives across a portion of the property that TNC acquired to get to his landlocked property, which is about 40 acres. It's a dirt 2-track. And part of the deal is that TNC would grant him legal access to his property. He cannot improve the 2-track, so he would have legal access to use the 2-track. He can't put gravel down or anything like that. And then he would also get the ability to put utility easements, and that would be bored underground. So there would be no like above top surface changes in any way. So TNC is here to answer any questions, but that's the gist of the request.
Liz, do you want to say anything?
I certainly can. Thank you, Chair Hartwell and council members. My name is Liz Beery. I'm the Associate Director of Grasslands in Minnesota for the Nature Conservancy and the Program Director for the Minnesota Prairie Recovery Program. You have quite a bit of information there in the memos, but I'm happy to provide an overview. Joe did a great job of providing some of the details, and I can elaborate if anyone would like me to provide additional context.
Are there any questions? Concerns? So this is a fairly minor course correction, just acknowledging past use.
I move that we approve the request.
All right, we have a motion to approve the request. Any comments, questions? Tom, if you'll call the roll.
Members starting with number 12 on our list, Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Herr.
Senator, aye.
Thumbs up.
Senator Herr, aye. Kaharski.
Aye.
Kaharski, aye. Senator Lang.
He stepped out.
Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Saxog.
Aye.
Saxog, aye. Suss.
Aye.
Suss, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 10 ayes, 0 nays.
Great, motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to item 10, discussion action of a retroactive accomplishment plan amendment. Yeah, Mark, I'm going to let you set that up.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, for some testimony today on this, we do have Christine Ostern, who's the Forest Legacy Program Coordinator and also the project manager for these appropriations. And I think Kelly Wilder is going to be joining us also. Is that remotely? Yes. Okay. Before we go to them, I'd just like to give you some background on this. First of all, I think it's important that you kind of know the circumstances behind it. So I'll go through the memo with you quickly. Really, we're looking at two potential motions here. Both are retroactive in nature. But the background behind them and where this came from is that in doing her normal due diligence, which is always good, Sandy goes through the final reports when they're come in, when they're submitted. and as well as all updates and everything. But there were a couple of instances in those final reports for Minnesota laws of 18 and 19 where this came up, especially Minnesota laws of 19, which is phase 7 of the Force for the Future. The final report reflected, and I'll just read this right out of the memo so everybody's got it, but the final report reflected overspending beyond the allowable 10% in the professional, and I'll get to that in a minute, in the professional services budget line. The final report allows no more than 10% over per budget line item for final report submissions. So in this case, the professional services, which budgeted at 180,000, which would have allowed with 10% overage, 198,000 to be spent. But the report showed that the program had spent 464,000. The second issue was that there was a parcel on the final parcel list for ML19 final report, the phase 7. That was the Sherburne 1 parcel. The parcel was closed on December 7th of 2023. And that's an important date to remember because the availability of the appropriation law in session law allowed only until June 30th of 2023 for funds to be spent for acquisition. And in that case, there also had to be a binding agreement on the property prior to June 30th, 22. So it was beyond the allowable date, which means that those appropriation dollars can't be used for that appropriation. So what this brings up is two requests from DNR for consideration by the council. And one is a motion for a retroactive amendment to the Minnesota laws of 2019, phase 7, Force for the Future appropriation that goes back to February 1st of 23 for an increased budget shift in professional services from 180,000 to 464,000. Now that's not additional monies. Those are being shifted from other budget areas if this is to be allowed. The second motion or second request is for a retroactive amendment to their laws of 22 or 2022, phase 9 Force for the Future appropriation that would go back to July 1st of 23 to add the Sherburne 1 parcel to the approved parcel list for that ML22 appropriation. That way they would legally and within the law be able to use the appropriation for paying for that parcel. I want to go a little bit deeper into this because staff did meet with Christine as well as Kelly Wilder, and I can't remember if anybody else was with us on the call on the meetings or not. But we walked through the entire matter, went through the budget overage, the parcel acquisition, the dates, the legalities, and the ramifications of it all. We discussed the circumstances at length, and that has led to the memo in your, or the letter, I guess it's a memo from DNR, from Kelly Wilder, and Kelly is the DNR liaison to LSOHC. But that's the memo in your packet as well, and I'll let Kelly get to that. Before I do that, though, I also wanted to make sure that the council understands that whether it's an agency or whether it's a nonprofit who has a problem like this, we want to bring those to you. We want full transparency. And I know that agencies have their own oversight, especially the DNR. In this case, that oversight failed. And that is part of the reason why we need this transparency. So we don't take it lightly. It's not something that potentially, maybe I could have made a approval of the retroactive amendment for the shift in the budget, but it was egregious enough that I did not want to do that. If it's 11% or 12% instead of 10, okay. But this is something that I think for all program managers and agencies and nonprofits, it's good to see the transparency. I'll also, I think I'll leave it at that. I may have comment later too, Mr. Chair. That's it for now.
So I'm going to open it up for questions, but I'm going to start by saying the DNR in its oversight of the grants made to NGOs and other units of government had a similar situation to this with Dakota County, which they disallowed the retroactive transfer. Why? Do you know why this is different than what the DNR did themselves to Dakota County when they had a similar situation?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I can answer that directly, so I'm going to answer it a little bit differently by giving you some more history, and that might shed some light on this. Force for the Future program with DNR, the original program manager was Dick Peterson. And those of you who were here remember Dick. He was, Sandy, you call him the kind grandpa who'd come in and he'd state the facts, bang, here they are, here's what's going on, here's why we're doing it, here's how we're doing it. And everything was clean and slick and beautiful. Very well respected and trusted. Dick retired a few years ago. Prior to his retirement, DNR had a replacement who would take over as program manager. Once Dick retired, that person who Dick had trained in moved on to another job within DNR. And after that, the job kind of fell on Christine. And I think this was the comment I almost put in earlier, and I will now. But I think that the DNR, and it I think is displayed within the memo from Kelly Wilder from DNR within the packet. I think DNR leadership did themselves and their appropriation and Christine a great disservice in not providing adequate training and not providing adequate oversight. These program managers have a tough job. It's not rocket science, but it's very detailed. There's so many nuances. And when you inherit past appropriations as well as new ones going forward, that's a big haul. And to be thrown in to sink or swim is not an enviable position for anybody. So I guess I'm extremely disappointed personally in DNR itself, in its leadership and supervisory for this happening. There are instances for everybody where something happens, but to have an acquisition of a parcel that falls outside of the appropriation availability in law, that's not a light thing. And that's another reason why why it's here in front of the council to discuss.
Just as a follow-up with that, my understanding was that for us to extend an appropriation, it needed legislative approval. Why is this different than that?
Good point. Good and great for clarification. So the Minnesota laws of 19 have expired. So it can't be purchased under, those funds cannot be used for this acquisition. Minnesota laws of 22 are still open and could be used for this. And that it would just have to be added to the account, to the parcel list for Minnesota laws of 22. So that would be the request, and then it would have to receive retroactivity as part of that request.
Okay. And the last clarifying question is just where did the 198,000 in professional fees that was budgeted for, but the 463 of professional fees that was spent, what didn't get spent? Where did that money come from?
Can go to Christine for that answer.
Yes. Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Christine Ostern. I'm the Forest Legacy Program Coordinator for DNR in the Division of Forestry, and I'm the Program Manager for these appropriations that we're discussing here. Thank you for the question. We had significant underspending in that appropriation in several other budget line items that are similar to professional services. We had underspending in the contracts, underspending in personnel. Those were the two biggest. We also had underspending in travel, direct support services, and supplies and materials. And so when you add those all up, it more than covers the extra overage in the professional services line. So
I
it
guess
did not detract, oh, excuse me, it did not detract from actual acquisition dollars.
that was the question I was trying to ask nicely. Suzanne, you have a question?
So,
I will demonstrate my newness. Was she ahead of me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so my question is, I mean, that's a significant difference in professional services. There's nothing describing in here what you're using those professional services for. So my question is, what was the huge difference? What cost so much more
Mhm.
for this project than you had ever reasonably anticipated?
Yes, thank you for the question. I was not the one who asked for the funding originally, and Mark described that situation. So I cannot really give a lot of information about how that original number was determined. I can say though that we had, because of the change in staffing, from the previous program manager to myself and the delay in between, that change, there were several other changes to actual projects that were in this appropriation, including, time delays. There were some extenuating circumstances with some of the other projects. And so we did have to do some new appraisals that we normally might not have to do. Some additional technical review of appraisals, additional survey work, and just the time delay itself. So, in general, or in total, the professional services are spent on those types of activities: appraisals, review, legal time, survey work, title review. So those are the activities that were overspent.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to sort out, you asked about the statutory authorization to spend the money, and that's okay. What is whose parameter is it? Is it a DNR adopted rule, administrative rule? Is it council approved DNR procedures? Is it Office of Management and Budget? I mean, whose rule are we amending, if you will, by approving this?
So we have the ability, the council, to approve changes to the parcel list. So
I'm talking, excuse me, I'm talking about the money, not the parcel.
okay.
I'm talking about the money.
Sandy, do you have an opinion on who's?
I was just going to say the availability of appropriation is in our law that outlines every year where the money is going. So those deadlines are in our session bill.
But the change from various things to professional services, we have the authority to approve those kinds of changes. And often staff is delegated that responsibility if it's a minor adjustment. This is more than a minor adjustment, which is why we're talking about it versus staff just reporting that they did something.
Mr. Chairman, having been a recipient and a program manager of grants, and having been informed that the expenditure reimbursement request we turned in exceeded the budget amount in that allocation, and because we already spent the money, there was no retroactive. And it was a situation of, we're in the middle of a project and we need some supplies, we're just going to get them, we'll find a way to pay for it. I'm curious, does this undermine the integrity of that entire process of ask for approval ahead of time? Otherwise, why would you bother in the middle of a project, even calling up grants administration at DNR and say, I need to move money from here to there? I'm more concerned about the precedent we're setting than this particular transfer.
And this is why it's being talked about by us and staff didn't approve it.
Member Suss, just to expound upon that, we do often as staff, or we get amendments into for accomplishment plans on a daily basis. And they may be additions to a parcel list or deletions from a parcel list. It may be changes to budget lines, shifts in funding. But we're always asking why and what's this all about? At times, there are requests or a need for retroactivity if that amendment is going to be provided. And there are many times where we don't allow that retroactivity because it should have been seen. It's not, it's just not right to provide it. There are times where we do provide the retroactivity because it was an innocent oversight or it was something as simple as a parcel was listed. They thought the parcel was on the parcel list. They just started work on it and they realized the name is right, but the description is wrong. Got it, something small like that. So there are times where retroactivity is not approved. But as the chair mentioned, in this case especially, we don't want to make retroactivity an easy thing for council members to have. And that's why this discussion is being had.
Mr. Chairman, just have a final follow-up. If you are completing a project and you've got a very expensive piece of equipment and it fails, and you need to replace it tomorrow, that's one thing. But professional services is something that you plan for. It's something that you may have put out bids for, and you possibly have specifications for. And it just seems odd that overspending in professional services without asking for a budget authorization in advance. It's a strange place to me to have an emergency over expenditure without a prior approval.
But wasn't that a result of, it's not like they knew that was going on. I think it was a result of bad administrative oversight. And that's what they're explaining. Is that correct?
So
Matt,
from my understanding is that the overage in professional services is a result of multiple things. There's legal fees, there's assessments, there's other things that you brought up. And then Mark, I think you may have answered this, but a little clarification would be helpful. When you have multiple areas where you could potentially go over, and it's a complex project, there's lots of things that can go wrong, whether it's equipment, whether that's delays that require more professional services. What are the trigger points for when you should go and ask for an amendment versus having to do it retroactively? Because otherwise you could be getting calls literally weekly about differences in a complex project like this with all the things that can move around. You're smiling, so I don't know if that's a good question or a bad question.
I was wondering if I could dump that one over to Sandy, but she shook her head no.
But maybe I can make it a simpler question.
Sure.
When should the flag have been raised on this, on the professional services side of things versus here in this room now?
Well, actually, I think DNR legal team or their lands and minerals should have flagged that there should have been some flags going up about the date that the land was acquired.
Yeah, I was kind of like setting that one aside. I was thinking more about the professional services side of things.
Professional services side, normally you catch it on the next update. Because when the status updates come in, they'll look at what's been spent to date. So it could be that DNR fiscal wasn't going through their SWIFT system and getting the changes to the project manager. It could be that there were, in the changeover between staff, that it took a long time to figure out what were all these expenses. It sounds to me also like some of these professional services, it was probably a second appraisal, second surveys because of time lags that were happening in the process with DNR.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mark. So, I mean, they cut the 150 grand out of the personnel side. It looks like that doesn't happen overnight either. Is that just an allocation? They just chose not to hire somebody? I mean, I thought maybe there was a trade-off and they use a contractor as opposed to an employee, but then as they go through, it's like, okay, that wasn't it. So I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking you don't make the decision to, I mean, that would take them outside the 10%, like immediately. It would seem like if they chose not to hire somebody then.
Yeah.
And again, it's a reduction in expenses, not items. So maybe they felt they don't have to report it. It's only 10% overs. as opposed to 10% unders.
Correct, 10% overage is what we're worried about.
Okay.
Underage, then it's allowing the funds for something else. So, and I don't know, Christine, if you have any further information to share with Daryl on his question.
I do. Thank you. Thank you for the question, member. Yes, that there, as Mark explained in the beginning, prior to me coming into this position, there were two people in program administration. And one retired and one left for another job. And they only refilled the one position with me about 8 months after the retirement. So you're correct. We did not have two staffing positions anymore, which was in place when this was applied for and approved. So there was only one staff position, and my position is covered partially by another grant that DNR gets from the federal government. And so because of the time lag, because of there only being one staff position instead of two, that's what resulted in the additional cost savings in the personnel line budget line.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And the follow-up to that is because of the gap, the appraisals got out of date, so they had to redo the appraisals, which is part of what the professional services then covered in the additional expense. So it was a cascading problem, I think. Sandy?
For the sake of the new people, the one thing to remember is when we appropriate money to the DNR for an NGO, it's on a reimbursement basis. And so the checks and balances then kind of come in if a partner is submitting receipts that exceed the budget item, DNR contracts management usually catches it. And because this is a direct appropriation to the DNR, they don't get reimbursed. They kind of have to be their own checks and balances. And so this is, that's why you're kind of seeing this is, I wouldn't expect that we would ever see anything like this from an NGO because it would have gotten caught earlier on in the way that we function.
Andrew?
A couple of questions. I don't see it either on the memo or this explanation memo. According to the parcel thing, it says it needed to have a binding agreement by June 30th of 22. Was that binding agreement in place? It was.
Yes.
And historically, it seems like we're a little more forgiving on timelines and some of the speed bumps that either NGOs or agencies hit along the way as far as acquisition goes, but 2.5 times and well over the 10% seems something a little outside of the scope that I remember the council ever approving before. And then I guess the final question is probably for staff is what is the fallout if we don't approve this pretty substantial ask in my mind? What's the fallout? What happens?
Good question. If the amendments are not allowed, DNR would have to use other funds other than OHF funds to acquire the parcel. The shift in funds, they'd only be able to go up to from professional services, they'd only be able to go up to whatever their budget is on professional services. They'd have to utilize those funds from somewhere else as well, or pay for those bills from somewhere else.
So there really are two issues. Just as I understand it, the 19 appropriation ran out of time and they took it out of the 22 appropriation, and they're asking for a retroactive addition to the parcel list to use money that's already there. That to me, that's a fairly easy ask, to just say, yes, you can use this pot of money because this one isn't available to you anymore for the work that both of the appropriations were intended to do. The overspend is another issue. And I'd like to ask us to, as we vote on this, to separate it and deal with them as a separate issue. I think I'm going to ask Suzanne, or I'm going to give Suzanne a chance, and then I'm going to ask Kelly to maybe weigh in on what happens if we don't approve it, and what DNR has done to ensure this doesn't happen again.
So just for clarification, Mr. President, is if they can spend up to what they requested, can they stretch out to 10% above that as well?
Correct. That would be correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the 180 professional fees, there's an allowance of 10%
Yeah.
to 198.
Yeah, and so that
Without-
they'd be allowed to spend up to that amount.
Yep.
Out of OHS funds. Okay, thank you.
Kelly, can you weigh in on what happens if we don't approve the overage to professional fees, and probably as importantly, what the DNR is doing to ensure this type of thing never happens again?
Good morning, Chair, members. Am I coming through all right?
Yep, you're great. Thank you.
Great. So I'm Kelly Wilder. I am a supervisor in the Fish and Wildlife Division, but I serve as the overall liaison between the DNR and the council. And so I will cover just a couple of things quickly in response to some of the discussion. I'll just echo that we have a high volume of expenditures occurring at all times across many program managers at the DNR, many divisions. And basically all of them are done in alignment with really high standards and a high degree of accountability. But I want to make sure that we're being clear that's not to diminish the goal that there should be zero errors of this type. And so I certainly agree with the council discussion so far that there's really no excuse for this. And what I can speak to in greater detail is how we plan to remediate this from a programmatic standpoint into the future. And so that's one of your questions, Chair, and I'm happy to get into that further. Another thing I will respond to is I don't think that this will be precedent setting. I don't see this happening again. This was really a worst case scenario in terms of multiple levels of checks and balances failing internally. And Sandy spoke to this, and I highlight this in the memo at the top of page 2, that it's really the only place there's not an oversight mechanism in place that's analogous to what nonprofits experience with Office of Grants Management. And so to your second question, Chair, what happens if these funds are not approved? I apologize for handing it off, but I believe my colleagues, Catherine Sherman-Hone and Tyler Tegetz, are in the room there with you, and they would be better able to speak to the fiscal exercise of making these funds available. And so if you'd like me to get more into the programmatic remediation, I can do that, or I think they could cover that other question for you.
We'll allow anyone to explain the situation.
But, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
Couple of things, and this maybe follows along a question. I'm not really worried about setting precedent. I'm more worried about following precedent. You know, there was a lot of people that sat at the table, and we had a pretty robust discussion about a year ago about spending, how much money was hanging out there, more so than this council has had in a long time. We set a pretty robust precedent about money in particular. I don't know. I think because it's the DNR, that kind of throws another element of complexity into the issue, because it is a state agency where I hope that we hold them at the same level that we would hold any other applicant. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a strange thing where it's asking for us to bend our rules quite a bit. However it happened.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of, however it happened, it's kind of inconsequential to what we decide.
Go ahead.
I tend to agree, and I can't help but put my private sector hat on. When a project goes over budget, you talk to the client and you say, look, we have to own some of this, and can we get some grace as well? My question is there a mechanism to make sure, or to meet halfway and provide to allow some overage above and beyond the 10 to 12%, but not the whole thing? Because again, precedent is a problem. I wouldn't want to just say wipe it away and too bad so sad. I just don't know if there's a mechanism to be able to show some grace, but not the full amount.
Your motion would be a mechanism.
Historically speaking, is there been a case in any?
The only one I'm aware of was the DNR turning down Dakota County for spending
Yeah.
after the deadline. And it wasn't really spending after the deadline. It was, I can't remember the details. Sandy's looking at me like I'm not saying it correctly.
I think that was a case of more ineligible expenses and appraisals not meeting the criteria. I think it was
Yes.
not out of the time frame
Thank
issue.
you for the clarification. Ted?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that kind of is back to my question about whose rule are we bending here? I mean, DNR, their grant administration, I assume they're using the same rules for every program as far as you can go 10% over a line item without prior approval. I don't know that we probably can, but I'm not sure how administratively possible it is for us to say, but for us, we want different rules. Is that would that be the case that if we were to say, because I agree with Matt, I think 10% of the line item is probably too small to require a prior approval. But if we said for our grants, we want it to be 50%, does that then conflict with how you administer grants for every other program?
I would just say, if DNR had come to us when they first identified they were going to have a problem, we do have the authority within the appropriation to say, you know, this line item goes up and this line item goes down in terms of expenditures. What's unusual about this is they're asking after the money is spent, after the program is pretty well passed. So we do have the authority. It's the retroactive approval that is unusual.
And also, is it out of the ordinary from go to one budget to another? But I don't remember ever.
That's on the acquisition side you're asking.
On the acquisition side, that happens with some frequency.
Okay.
And because parcel lists
Sure.
are fluid and deals happen
Yeah,
and don't happen.
I think as a council, we recognize that.
Yeah.
That's
So that happens all the time. The retroactive approval of expenditure doesn't happen all the time.
So back to my question, you could do a partial, but it would require a motion to.
We have to have a motion to approve, to deny, to do anything. If we do nothing, if I call for a motion and no one makes a motion, it's not approved. It's just that simple.
Before Matt jumps in with his amendment, I have a question too.
Sure, go ahead. And then,
Well, I just, got my calculator out and I thought it was just interesting that, the project cost in total hasn't changed, right? And the
No.
request that was, the original request was the 4.5 million, 4573. And I just redid the calculator quick to see, did something change? And, two parts. One, they're still within their budget, right? So if you were a project manager, as long as you're within your budget, you'd be saying, well, I gotta live with it. I mean, that's one view. The other part of me, I just find it interesting that the exact numbers shuffled for the changes come out to be the same total amount. It's not like we had more professional services that were allocated, and it just happens to be the exact same amount that our personnel cost, and that equaled up as far as subtractions.
I'm gonna just guess.
Yes?
The total appropriation amount, we can't change. So they increase the one and decrease the others to have the total the same. That doesn't mean they're gonna spend all of it in each category. It just means they're asking for the shift in the budget that allows for this over expenditure. Typically, all projects come in, all appropriations come in not spending 100% of their money because you can't make it work that way.
Leave it on the table.
So I'm gonna turn to Tom.
Thanks, Chair. So Christine, back to our the original problem when you walked in here is what's going to happen in the future if you're undermanned or underwomaned or whatever, and you can't get it done. I mean, Are you making corrections here that will make it less than so you don't think you're gonna have this happen again?
Yes.
And I think you already told us that, but tell us again.
Yes, thank you, Member Saxog. Thank you for the question. I think the best person to answer that would be Kelly online. And before we transfer to her, I would just like a little follow-up to the previous questions and conversation, if I may. I'd like to point out that in our ML 2019, we did not spend the entire allocation or the appropriation. We underspent by close to $1 million. And so the shifts between the budget lines are more than covered. You know, what we're asking for retroactive approval of is that overspending in one of the budget lines. In the amendment to the accomplishment plan, the numbers match because that's what we needed to show in this amendment request. When you look at the final report, which is in a draft format right now. It was submitted, but now it's on hold because that's where Sandy and I found the discrepancies. The final report will show the actual spending and all of the budget lines and the actual total spending, and that is, like I said, about $1 million less than what was appropriated. So we are under budget in everything except for the professional services line. And that's where, you know, similar activities that would have been under some of the other budget lines, the contracts, the, you know, personnel and some of the other budget lines where we underspent. We just did not understand that with that 10% overage rule that we needed to ask, that I needed to ask for the amendment prior to spending. So now we know that that is part of an answer to your question, Member Saxog, is that there has been a steep learning curve here, and we understand these things better. I understand these things better. And I'm going to turn it over to Kelly then to kind of speak through more in general the actions that we're proposing to take so that this doesn't happen again.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to approve the retroactive number one for the dollar amount.
Okay. That's fine. I wanted to comment before we got to that, for those that were new. Once the final report is submitted and approved, the $1 million that is being talked about gets added to the amount we get to reauthorize. So the money doesn't go away. It comes back to us for us to allocate again, which would be in our forecasts that we're likely to see this fall. If we approve it. If we hold it up, it won't be ready till next year. Because until the final reports are approved, the money isn't available. So we have a motion to approve it. Is there any more comments or?
Are we gonna wait for the answer to his question from Kelly?
Sure. Can we hold up?
Oh,
okay, Kelly?
I'm sorry, Chair. Christine asked me to cover some of the what we'll do to make sure this doesn't happen. And what question are you referring to that was still in my court?
Yeah,
that's it.
I think that's the question.
Okay.
What are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, great. So thanks, Chair and members. I am very confident that Christine will never do this again. Christine is amazing and has done an amazing job taking the reins for this program. And like all of our project managers, had nothing but the best of intentions and thought that she was managing her budget within the standards. And I appreciate the point that if we had come to you ahead of time, these would have been viewed, I think, as fairly typical requests. And so the error of not coming ahead of time is what is tripping us up here. We have a great system of mentorship and training and handing projects off within the agency, given the high number of project managers we have and involvement with the fund since its inception. But this has highlighted that some of it is a bit informal and siloed within divisions. In some divisions, we have many more project managers and much more of a history of managing these funds. And so more consistency and more formality is what we're going to bring to bear to make sure this doesn't happen again across the department. We have a couple of exercises we can do in Swift to make it easier for project managers. That's our fiscal system, to make it easier for project managers to track their different buckets of funds and their deadlines. We still need to have a meeting among all of the accounting directors in the different divisions to nail those strategies down in greater detail. And so I'd like to come back to staff at a minimum and tell them more about that in the coming months. From a programmatic standpoint, we have an operational order. That's a type of internal policy we have. It's very robust, the one that we have around constitutionally dedicated funds and OH funds in particular. But we haven't updated it since the 2013-2015 timeframe. And we've learned a lot with how to manage these funds. Some things have changed with the council and with the agency. And so this is, those are bears of a document. So we don't update them unless there needs to be updates, but we can put some of these specific items we've learned over time since the fund has been in place into an updated version of that set of guidelines. And so that will be happening as well in the coming months. And that brings together, as the council has discussed, our project and program managers, myself, division leadership, our fiscal staff, our lands and minerals staff, to ensure that interdisciplinary review occurs on those documents. And so that will make sure that we're all speaking the same language and making sure all of our checks and balances are documented. And then that tool will be used in a more robust annual training and community of practice. We're always gaining new tools. Microsoft Teams has been online now for a couple of years, and it gives us a really great way to have a community of practice across the agency. Christine, for example, isn't in St. Paul, and so we can bring together all of our staff who are across the state and make more trainings available to them, and make these learnings available more informally, like, hey, this happened to me. Make sure you understand these deadlines, make sure that this type of thing doesn't happen again. And having that, I think at a minimum, a really robust annual training is a great idea. We do meet with project managers every year, but not for a very kind of from soup to nuts overview of how to be a project manager. That's the type of thing that did happen more through mentorship. There is absolutely no harm and a lot of benefit to formalizing that training. If we record it, then it can be used for the type of situation that Christine ran into where she took the reins midstream on a grant. So I think those are the things that we've talked about internally so far as being a couple more layers to ensure this type of error does not happen into the future. So thank you, Chair.
Any questions on that?
So just in your memo on section 1, explore broader use of dedicated accounts. The statement reads, one immediate best practice that the DNR will explore implementing more broadly is having separate sub-accounts. I guess my question is, are you saying you're going to, or you're just going to explore them? Because there's an old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I want to know, are you going to implement them, or are you just going to talk about them?
We are going to do this. I want to wait till we talk with our accounting directors to know, will we do this for both acquisition and restoration and enhancement? What exact types of budget items will we break out? So we will be doing it. I just didn't want to promise the exact implementation until I meet with the right people.
Comfortable with that, David?
I
You've got
think
more
that-
experience.
I think the spotlight is such that this is not likely to come back in a different form to us. Joe, do you? No. That's my own sense. This was a big faux pas. And I think we've shined the light on it, and if it happens again, if we approve this, the next time I would encourage the council not to approve it. This is an exception that we're gonna make for a series of circumstances that they've explained and they've apologized for. So I would encourage us to go along with it, but
By virtue of the fact that we're having this discussion and it is open meeting, does that suffice in terms of a public record that we can refer back to that?
I
and
think
say,
so.
Once a mistake, twice a tradition.
yes,
Okay,
that's how I
I
would
think
take it.
that's right.
right, okay.
And Daryl's gonna be here for 4 years.
I got a good memory too.
All right, Tom, will you call the roll on the motion?
Members starting with number 1 on our list, Hartwell.
Clarification, are we voting on both motions
We're
or
voting,
just the?
there's only one motion.
Professional
in front of us,
services.
Just the professional
Thank you.
services, the
Yeah.
retroactive approval of
And this
the,
does not stop the acquisition. This is only the dollar value.
we are going to have a separate motion on the acquisition.
Starting with number 1, Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, I. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, I. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, no.
Burkle, no. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, I. Senator Herr.
Senator, aye.
Senator Herr, I. Kaharski.
Aye.
Kaharski, I. Senator Lang.
No.
Senator Lang, no. Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, I. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, I. Suss.
Aye.
Suss, I. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 10 ayes, 2 nays.
All right, the motion carries and message has been sent.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the retroactive amendment for ML 2022 Phase 9 back to 7/1/2023 to add the Sherburne 1 parcel to the approved parcel list.
Great. Any comments?
I
Questions?
feel this is the lesser of the two transgressions.
Yes,
And that we're just moving it forward and there's precedent.
yeah. All right, Tom, call the roll, please.
Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Herr.
Aye.
Senator Herr, aye. Kaharski.
Aye.
Kaharski, aye. Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, aye. Suss.
Aye.
Suss, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 11 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, I just want to correct you on the last motion. I think there were 9 ayes and 2 nays. I think you said 10.
Oh, you are correct. Shara is absent. My apologies.
It's all right. I just want to get it on the record correct. Everyone makes mistakes. All right, thank you. Next we'll move to item 11. Receive an update on the carp barrier project. For those of you that were not on the council at the time this was approved, the council approved a $12 million request to work on a carp barrier to keep invasive carp from getting into the upper reaches of the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers and tributaries. And we established a series of steps by which we would release different amounts of money as other accomplishments took place. And this is an update and a request to release an additional $3 million for the next phase. So go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Council. My name is Carly Wagner. I'm the project coordinator for the Lock and Dam 5 Invasive Carp Deterrent Project. Online, we have Kelly Pennington, the Invasive Species Unit Supervisor, as well as Grace Lopnow, our Invasive Fish Coordinator. As the chair mentioned, I'm here to provide an update on the Protecting Upper Mississippi River from Invasive Carp project. We have moved through activities 1 and 2 in our accomplishment plan and are ready to move into future activities. So I'm here to provide an update on the project and forecast next steps for design and permitting. For any new council members, I'm going to provide a little project background to get everyone up to speed, and then share key updates from these first activities that we've accomplished in our accomplishment plan, and then move into what we are expecting for next steps. Brief background on invasive carp in Minnesota. I just want to emphasize there's been 3 invasive carp species captured in Minnesota for years. They have been captured upstream from Lock and Dam 5 as well as downstream. Most captures of invasive carp have been below Lock and Dam 5, which is the project location for this appropriation, but they have been captured in further reaches upstream. Most captures have been below Lock and Dam 5, and most recently there was a school of invasive carp tracked and tagged in Pool 8, as recent as last month. Lock and Dam 5 is upstream of Winona on the Mississippi River. It is chosen for a project to prevent and manage invasive carp in Minnesota because, like I mentioned, most invasive carp have been captured downstream of this location. Additionally, the dam gates at Lock and Dam 5 open less frequently than other lock and dams on this stretch of river. However, the dam gates do open at this location in situations of high water, as shown in the picture. And under these conditions, fish can move upstream freely. So it's important to note that invasive carp and other fish can pass through the lock and dam gates at this location. And they have been captured both upstream and below of the project site. A primary component of this project is the installation of a selective invasive carp deterrent. Selective deterrents for invasive carp use sound and other stimulus to deter passage. Only 2 experimental installations of selective invasive carp deterrents have been installed to date. Evidence from both suggests they're about 50% effective at reducing passage of invasive carp through the lock, with little to no impacts on the native species studied. These are deterrents that are placed in the lock, not on the dam gates. There has not been any deterrents developed for dam gates yet, and that requires future research. I'll also note that these 2 experimental installations of lock deterrents are at lock and dams where fish cannot pass through the dam gates due to the engineering design of the lock and dams at those locations. Brief overview of our accomplishment plan. As Chair mentioned, we were approved to move forward with phased activities. We were initially approved to move forward with the interagency project plan and scoping for a cost of $500,000. We are wrapping up those phases and ready to move into the design and permitting phases in our accomplishment plan. A primary component of this project, which has deadlines outlined in our statute, is the installation and design of an invasive carp deterrent in the lock. Given the constraints of a lock deterrent in that it does not remove fish from the water and will not deter passage of invasive carp through the dam gates, we emphasize the need for supporting technologies to support the effectiveness of the lock deterrent. Those include a trap and sort system to selectively remove invasive carp, deterrents for the dam gates, as well as other ongoing projects such as manipulating flow through the dam gates, as well as ongoing downstream removals. As mentioned, this requires a multi-pronged approach to respond and manage invasive carp at this location. Here's a graphic showing our proposed system for Lock and Dam 5. We have the deterrent in the lock at number 1 on the image, which is entering the design phase, and then the supporting technologies that we will continue to scope as the deterrent design is developed. We've identified 2 potential locations for the trap and sort. This is from gathering information from our interagency project team on where fish aggregate, as well as reviewing available information on fish in the river at this location. There's ongoing separately funded work that helps support progress and goals of this project. That includes a dam gate flow optimization study being run by the U.S. Army Corps, as well as ongoing downstream removals by the DNR invasive carp team and contracted commercial fishermen. The first step in our accomplishment plan was the establishment of an interagency project team. We did that quickly back in July of 2024. This is made up of state, federal, and tribal partners with expertise on deterrence, expertise with invasive carp management and response, as well as the relevant permitting authorities we need to execute this project at Lock-in Dam, which is a U.S. Army Corps-owned facility. We continue to meet monthly with the project team to support project progress. Additional temporary capacity was hired for this project, myself as the project coordinator, as well as an invasive carp contracts and grants coordinator to support the large and complex agreements needed to permit this project, as well as we enter into the construction phase for the deterrent.
You look a lot more comfortable in the picture than you do up here testifying in front of us. I'm just gonna say.
Yep. It was a nice sturgeon that we got there. That picture is actually from tagging efforts. That's another key update that we have is the interagency project team developed a tagging plan for this project to support adaptive management. We will be monitoring 5 native species as well as invasive carp at this location. As I mentioned, there's only 2 experimental installations of deterrence. So these are quite new technologies and none have been implemented in the upper Mississippi River reaches in Minnesota here. So we really want to know how the deterrent is going to perform at reducing passage of invasive carp while allowing passage of native species. So tagging fish and seeing how they move through the lock and dam before and after deterrent installation is going to be key to help us manage this project adaptively. Another thing the DNR project team did was tour the experimental installations of deterrence in Iowa and Kentucky. This was really valuable to talk with U.S. Army Corps staff, including lock masters, on how these deterrents are interfacing with their operations, the type of footprint that is needed for these facilities, and how ongoing operations and maintenance are going. So this was really valuable as we move to select a deterrent for use as project managers for Lock-in Dam 5. The scoping activities in our accomplishment plan are broken out into scoping for the lock deterrent as well as these supportive technologies. We're going to continue to scope these supporting technologies as the deterrent design is developed and we have an understanding of the needed costs for design and installation of the deterrent and what we might have remaining in the appropriation to pursue these complementary technologies. I'll mention a project that is funded via separate state appropriation, but it is looking at selective native fish passage at Lock-in Dam 5, which would be very similar to the trap and sort we proposed in our accomplishment plan. So that project is wrapping up next month, and we look forward to utilizing that report to further scoping for the trap and sort system at Lock-in Dam 5. One thing we are working towards to move into the design phase for the lock deterrent is securing an agreement with the U.S. Army Corps Engineer Research and Development Center, as well as the U.S. Army Corps St. Paul District, to facilitate the design of the deterrent. So this agreement has been finalized, and the first task under the agreement will be the district of the U.S. Army Corps St. Paul to develop a project management plan. This will be all the steps they need to do to review our request to install a deterrent on their site. So we really are fortunate that we're working with U.S. Army Corps closely on the design. We think it has many efficiencies since they are the landowner. And the Engineer Research and Design Center has experience with designing selective deterrents for invasive carp. They were involved with one of the 2 installations. So they will be moving forward with designing the lock deterrent. An initial first step will be an assessment of cost and feasibility for the 2 deterrent options at Lock-in Dam 5. Looking ahead at what else is next under this agreement with the U.S. Army Corps, as soon as we close task 1 here with the Corps, we will be moving into design and permitting phases. That will involve gathering any technical information needed to design the deterrent, Each deterrent is going to be unique at a lock and dam because conditions are varied between lock and dams. This is not kind of a plug and play type of situation. The deterrent is going to need to be designed from the ground up. So we'll gather any information needed to inform an engineering design that will be developed specifically for Lock and Dam 5. And that will bring us to our deadline for the design deterrent, June 30th of 2026, as outlined in the appropriation. That moves into anticipated next steps. A reason that we are at the council presenting today is to share that we're ready to move into the design and permitting phases for the deterrent. The last step is DNR's project managers to select which deterrent option. There are two kinds that we are reviewing. We'll decide what is most feasible and effective for Lock and Dam 5, and then move that design into the design phase, move that deterrent into the design phase. We're estimating $3 million to cover project activities through June 30th, 2026. This will cover design and permitting of the lock deterrent, as well as support our ongoing work to scope supportive technologies for that deterrent. Thank you for the chance to provide an update on what we've accomplished in this first year of the appropriation through forming an interagency project team, as well as scoping the lock deterrent and supporting technologies. And we are looking forward to hearing your response on our request to move forward with the design and permitting phases of our accomplishment plan.
Great, thank you. Any questions? I'd take a motion to approve the request to release the funds for the permitting and engineering.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
DNR said that there's that certainly there's no cut from the federal to this project. Is that correct? And will that will it allow the partner, the Corps of Engineers, to meet their commitment with DNR?
Mr. Chair and members, thank you for the question. We meet regularly with the U.S. Army Corps on a weekly basis, and they have not shared any concerns or updates as far as limiting services or impacts to our timeline that is outlined in our agreement with them to facilitate design of the lock deterrent.
Okay.
Good to know. Follow up. So I assume that by 2027, we'll be having the deterrent in place.
Mr. Chair and members, right now we are entering the design and permitting phase for the lock deterrent, working to meet deadlines outlined in statute. The design will be completed by June 30th, 2026. We know that construction of the deterrent will have to be in the winter when the lock is not used for navigation. So we are working to meet deadlines as well as find efficiencies wherever possible.
Thank you very much for the update.
Great. Daryl?
So for my reference, then this project has been before us before we provided funding for it, and all they're asking for is a release of some of that funding. Is that effective?
Yeah, we
said yes to.
We recommended, the legislature approved a $12 million request. We put as part of our approval of that on their accomplishment plan that they would come to us for release of funds at various phases rather than just say, here's 12 million, let us know what happened, with some uncomfortableness that we could get at the end of $12 million and have nothing but permitting done.
Okay.
So that's why we sort of had a stage gate process.
But clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Mr.
We have
Chair.
a motion. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, you know, I originally I wasn't that keen, but of the approval appropriation, $3 million each time. You know, I support it though. Eventually, But I think this process currently does work well so that we can, periodically get update from DNR. And I want to thank all the party that's involved to give us to get us up to this point. So thank you.
Great. Tom?
Members, starting with number 3 on our list, Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Her.
Senator, aye.
Senator Her, aye. Kaharski.
Aye.
Kaharski, aye. Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, aye. Suss.
Aye.
Suss, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 11 ayes, 0 nays.
Great, motion passes. Keep up the work.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to a discussion of proposal review. I will just say to everybody, I hope you had fun.
Is that what you call that?
I've had the opportunity to review the scoring, to review the comments. I appreciate everybody took time to write down comments. It's very helpful. It's helpful for other council members. It's equally helpful for project managers so they know what are we thinking, where are their concerns. Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, or members, in your packets, there's a bunch of information for you, and I think maybe most of you had a chance to look them over so far. The first thing I'd like to mention is that I was just so pleased to see all the comments come in from all the members. You guys were wonderful. Anytime you add comments in, that's great. And we just thoroughly appreciate that. That said, I know that you often will come up with more questions as well. So as those questions come up, you can go directly to the program manager, but it may be better if you come to staff, and then we can provide them to the program managers and provide all the members back the answers that come from those added questions. And they may be questions that need clarification between now and August, or maybe after that. So, but again, thank you, members, for all the comments you put in. I think it was excellent. There are a couple of aspects we need to look at from a proposal standpoint. You may have all questions and you may want to talk with each other about how you scored or rated. I think the one important thing of all is to realize that it was pretty obvious to me that each of you did a really good job of being consistent in your scorings. And you each use a consistent method, and that's the most important thing, because then it allows all the scores to mesh and meld in an appropriate manner. The two things we have to look at today, first of all, is proposal selections for who of the proposals do you want to come back for the August hearings? And are there any that you don't want to come back for that? And the second thing is the hearing format. In the past, I'll just go over that real quick, but that's in the memo. In the past, we've had basically a 15-minute per proposal format, 10 minutes of presentation, 5 minutes of Q&A. That's worked pretty good. We've had to really push to keep things moving, but every once in a while we get ahead and we generally stay on time. There have been opportunities in the past to do more time than that, and we can make more time. We have by cutting down some of the breaks and shaving our meal time back or so on, or going a little longer in the day. But with 58 proposals this year, if we look at 15 minutes each, that's 19 and a quarter hours with breaks, plus another 45-minute discussion at the end of each day. So you're looking at 20 hours between 2 days, the 2 10-hour days. That's a healthy chunk to stay awake. Yeah. And don't worry, we'll have munchies and beverages for you to do that. So, Mr. Chair, in order, how would you prefer to go with this? You want to talk about proposals?
I'd love to hear any comments anyone had in reading the proposals. Ultimately, we have to decide, do we want to hear all these proposals or some subset of it? That's up to the council. You can see the scoring. It's always interesting to me to see, you know, I love this one and Daryl hates it. And Daryl loves that project and I hate that one. And we're stronger for having differences of opinion. The collective scores give you an indication of sort of the collective sense of the group in terms of what's feeling pretty good or what falls out as not as strong a proposal. So I'll just open it up for comments. Tom?
Well, I've always felt that unless you have a real stinker, you know, and we've had a few of those, but I mean, generally, you know, there's hidden gems that come along, you know, that weren't rated very high and still did quite well when we got down to the hearings. So I favor probably hearing all of them unless we see one on here that's particularly bad.
Yeah, I think the one consideration is in the past, we've had 300 million worth of requests and now we have 500 million. So
it is.
We may want to cut it at a different way, and it's okay to do that. Daryl?
I guess if I put my corporate hat on from a finance side, I say we've scored them. We've effectively said, gee, some of these are making our return on our investment, even though that's not a criteria here. But by doing your scoring, I mean, it looks like at about 80 is your cutoff. I mean, everybody kind of looks like they have the same views of scoring of 80 and above. That takes about half of your list away and gives you more time to focus on projects that maybe you want to spend some more time understanding. And I throw that out for discussion, just saying, if you're trying to focus and you've only got a third of the requests, what, you know, I know in the past, it sounds like we've kind of given them a little bit of money and a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, but is that really what we want to be doing if we have to give everybody a third of what they're asking for? Or
Well,
it's simply a matter they've all asked for 3 times as much as they really want or need, that kind of question.
I think it's both. I think there are, in my humble opinion, people who asked for far more money than they've ever spent before, which seems a little unreasonable, which helped boost the total. There were also a couple of larger requests for one-time projects that boosted the total. But we don't have to hear them all, or we can hear them all. That's a discussion.
I was
Yeah.
where you were, Daryl, at the beginning. And then when I saw everybody's scores, I thought, you know what, we got the time. I would love to hear them all, because some of the things that I scored really low, I saw other people scored high, and I'd like to hear more about why that was. And being somewhat new to this process, I may have over or underweighted things like historical spend and not really understood that, or cost per acre. And I'd like the opportunity to hear from the applicants what that really is. And was it really $20,000 per acre, or did I misinterpret that? So that's why I think I would like to hear as opposed to just read the 50 some applications. Yeah.
I would be okay with that. I guess my thoughts were simply that will it force people into doing a better job? You know, if you put your corporate hat on and you want to go in and request money from the parent company, you better put your best foot forward first and get the numbers right, because you're going to lose out. They're not going to hear everybody's proposals. It's just not going to work that way.
Yeah. Suzanne?
Couple things. My experience from last year. I appreciated the opportunity to hear all the proposals, because there were some things that came out in the proposals and the presentations that really changed my opinion and thoughts about a particular proposal. And I think if we don't at least listen to them, we may miss out on that. Not all of these people are professional grant writers. And so just because I don't want to start penalizing people because they didn't get all the information quite right, and they didn't write it in a professional manner. as such. And so I tend to agree with Tom here that I think we should at least give them an opportunity to put their best foot forward in presentation. But one other comment I may have is there's a couple of projects in here that I feel is one project. We should only give them one slot to talk about, and that's the WRE-01 and WRE-04, which seem to me to be the same project that they're splitting out into two different things. I think they get one slot. That's my opinion. Thank you.
And those are for people who don't remember exactly what that
Okay, so
project
there's,
is.
The DNR Wetland Habitat Team, which looks like a personnel request. And then the WR4 is actually the work it sounds like that they're trying to do. And it sounds like they've split those out into two separate projects, whereas it, from the descriptions and such, it looks like it's the same project to me.
Yeah, I was troubled by the split out of personnel only.
Yeah.
Just on it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's easier for us to be able to address those questions if they just do it in one presentation.
Another question that I would ask is, do you want to hear about contract management, restoration evaluations, which is a requirement in law for us to do, or the core functions, which is really an offset? For those that are new, there are NGOs that have projects, and DNR has insisted on doing part of that project, posting of signs and evaluations of historical stuff. We ask the project managers to identify how much in their program is those core functions. And when we then allocate, we have started taking it out of theirs and putting it into a DNR core functions account so that they can close out a project and the DNR can take an extra couple of years to finish the core function piece. But Ducks Unlimited is done with their project. They're done. They don't have to look like they're not done waiting for DNR. The one question I have on core functions is what happens if they don't spend all the money that was allocated to them? And so maybe that's a separate thing we could handle in our October meeting even.
Maybe, yeah, maybe those, if we don't hear presentations on those three things, if it could be a presentation at some point to the council, that would be
Sure.
helpful for me as a new member to understand how that money actually is spent.
Yeah. Would that be acceptable to sort of break those out? Because we have to spend that money one way or the other.
Yeah. That would knock forward.
Mr. Chair, maybe I'm repeating what you just said in a different way. The agency has costs because we have this program. And if we didn't have the program, they wouldn't have those costs. And I guess I'd like to hear from the agency, maybe separate from the process of hearing from the projects, of how they address it, what their costs are. I mean, should we allocate out of every grant that's approved, like I think you said, a little slice that goes to the agency? I think that's separate from, I'll just pick one here, DNR grasslands, DNR, I don't want to do that one. Anyway, another one where they're talking about their, a nonprofit organization is asking for money to do something.
Sure.
We had two people from DNR here for quite a while this morning. I know they spent time preparing for that. They spent time talking to their supervisors, probably all the way up to the, if not the commissioner's office, the assistant's office. Somebody has to pay for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I think that should be on the same, I gave those high scores, but I don't know that that should be on the same level as somebody coming in saying, we want to restore this wetland. So
And
however you think it's best done.
I gave them zeros because I knew we had to give them money anyhow, and I didn't want to read the proposal.
Be the ones that kind of.
I noticed that.
Because you know, we can't not have contract management. So I didn't feel like rating and how they meet the objectives that we ranked on is not consistent with how a project meets those. So I just didn't rank them.
I did the same thing.
But that was my choice, and I was consistent in doing it. And we're gonna have to have contract management. There's a law that requires us to have restoration evaluations as 0.1% of our overall allocation. What I'm hearing is that it's okay to look towards November to have a report from them on those three things versus having it part of the hearing agenda. And I'm hearing Suzanne say, combine the two projects into one, so we would have 54 presentations, not 58.
And it's a for sure that those two are combined.
If you look at the numbers, they're reporting the exact same numbers. They do seem very.
You're impressive because I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
My eyes might have been bugged out by that.
Compared their, their allocations, the same allocations they've had in the past are in the same report. So that gave me a hint that it was for the same thing.
I didn't like that. I didn't like 01 just simply because it looked like it was all staff costs. Like, so what do they do? Separate, put staff costs in one and then
Yeah,
work in the other?
so that's what we're.
This sounded, the two projects sounded way too familiar. So I could.
So I would be happy to take a motion that we hear all 50, that we hear all projects except 01, 02, and 03, and that we asked DNR to combine WRE 01 and 04 in a new revised proposal and hear it just once, which would give us 54 proposals to review at our 2 days.
So
We have a motion.
Do we have questions now?
We can ask all the questions you want.
Thank you. Again, as a newbie on this thing,
Please.
this is some education, but one of the things that as I went through them, there were so many of them that had a lot of what I would say unspent money. It's been several years. And when I think about, giving people opportunities to get money that haven't gotten money versus people who have a lot of unspent money, to me, it's like there's a bit of a separation there. I mean, people are on phase 18 or 19 and they got 5-6 years of dollars they haven't spent. And I'm thinking, boy, I mean, I know it takes time to plan. I get that, and to implement and get those funds spent. But at what point in time do they run out of time when they have unspent funds?
Well, each appropriation has a length of time, and when they don't spend it in that length of time, we get it back. So the hearings will give you an opportunity. It'll give us a couple of opportunities. One, we're now in the middle of the field season where money is being spent, especially on restorations. So by the time we get to the end of August, we will have updates, and project managers are going to come in and say, I know I said, but here's the update to where I'm really at. You will then have an opportunity to say, I don't think this one should get any more money because there's still unspent funds. And that's a discussion as you will have an individual allocation, and as a group, we will have a discussion about that, both before you do your individual allocation and once the sort of totals come in. If you end up uncomfortable about Boots Inc. having 3 years funding and asking for a fourth and asking for triple what they've ever spent before, you can make the case that they shouldn't get any money. And as a group, we will talk about that and discuss that and try to come to a consensus decision.
I appreciate that, because there are certainly some places where it seemed like it made sense to why the money hadn't been spent. In other cases, it just seemed like I couldn't figure it out. Is there a way in potentially future proposals to just have a narrative section after that history part, just to say, to let the applicant comment on funds that aren't spent?
Sure.
Because that would help actually eliminate some of the assumptions in the
Yeah,
evaluation.
there are some groups that I know will come in and say, I haven't spent it, but I have promised it to do this acquisition and we're just in the
Yeah.
process.
There could be just something in that application that would help eliminate.
Well, it might even in the scoring criteria have something where we can put a weighting for, I mean, I kind of did in terms of their funding issues, but I mean, it would be nice to almost have that. And from my perspective, I would like to have seen a ranking or a way to score it when it's open to public hunting or fishing. I mean, if we're buying an easement and buying land, we're spending the same amount of money. I just assume we're buying land that's open to the public. I mean, I'd like to be, frankly, anything we do, I'd like to be open to the public because I figure the public is spending the money for this property. I'd like them to make sure.
And I think that's a great comment, but go back to the constitutional dedication. It's for habitat.
Yep.
And not all habitat has to be available to be important.
I understand that, but I'm just saying as far as the scoring, because there's things.
And
in the
that's
scoring,
fine.
Like
We
I'm
can-
saying,
we
gee,
can certainly add
well, they wrote the program, you know, biopsy, the first paragraph to me wasn't near as important as the funding, how they spent money, where it was going, I guess was my.
There's no reason we can't adjust the scoring for next year's criteria to include that and drop something else or add 3 more things there. This will be next year, your scoring system that collectively we will come up with.
And there is probably a lot of nuances that go in the scoring system. You score the project, not the fiduciary part of it. You know, you score the value of what this means to habitat. I personally like the open to the public, but I still score, you know, rim high because it actually helps habitat. But when it comes to the allocation part of it, all of a sudden you have a different avenue. So, and that's where the money comes into. I think last year we really did have a great discussion about, hey, you have millions of dollars out there hanging that does not have an allocation, you know, or you talked about an allocation and, you know, come August, that allocation hasn't taken place. So,
Okay. That's,
so
separate the project from the fiduciary.
yeah, and there's a method to the madness. I mean,
That's helpful perspective.
Yeah, one of the things we added 3 years ago was instead of just hearing all the proposals and then everybody doing their individual allocation, we set up time to have the discussion every day about what we'd heard and concerns that we had or opportunities that we saw or whatever. So I was hearing what you were thinking, where before we just waited till the last minute to do it, which wasn't as helpful.
well, and I think the council has, you know, looked at a project, scored it high, and then when it came down to how applicable it was to what we were trying to accomplish. I mean, we have zeroed out projects where, like, yeah, it's valuable. We understand that that's why it scores well, but it doesn't apply to what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So.
There
And
also,
we've been flexible.
you know, frankly, there aren't many bad projects in here. So we have to decide which are more important and at what level. It's not like we have good and bad choices.
Right.
We have too many good choices.
Just to
Suzanne and.
follow up. Yeah, follow up for the way I utilize how much money has been spent or not is I kind of refer back to the question on the urgency. Well, everything's always urgent. The world is coming to an end. So in order to really kind of evaluate, that's when I look at how much of their money has been spent, because to me, that goes toward the urgency. If they still have bunches of money left, is it really that urgent that we give you more money this year? And so that's where that plays into my conversations there. And I have a little different opinion about open to public. I think a significant amount needs to be open to public use, but there need to be areas where wildlife is not harassed, that there's opportunity for the wildlife to be there, or they'll leave all of these public areas to begin with. So,
And I can accept that, Susan. I just, in my mind, in scoring, I mean, I just think that, you know, the public has provided this funding, so I want to
Absolutely.
provide the maximum benefit I can. I would agree that there's corridors, connections, you know, spots of where we're trying to control erosion or something in areas. I can accept that. I just, in my mind, I keep thinking, well, we're supposed to be here representing the public, and the public wants spots to hunt and fish.
Leaning toward that is a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they do, but you have to also understand the biology of
Sure.
how all of this works as
Yeah.
well. Is
One-
without adequate habitat, having areas where these animals can rest, they may leave the state as well, so.
And as a hunter,
Yeah.
I get that. I understand resting areas, but, I guess the other thing from the scoring that I didn't think that the sheets helped me with was kind of driving, and it's not like you've been down this path a little bit, but it's kind of like driving what is our priorities as we look at seeking to fund things. I know we get proposals in, but I mean, as I looked at the past few years, I mean, I don't see anything hardly, as a percentage of the total for fisheries kind of stuff. And I think about we got 1 million fishermen in the state of Minnesota, and we got 80,000 duck hunters. I'm one of them. I'm a pheasant hunter as well, but I think, wow, we've got a lot of people in our state that fish and are looking for, improvements in their fish habitat and their fishing. And I don't see a lot of that appears to be popping out for projects. And
Is that clean water?
It is both clean water and the fact that despite asking people to submit proposals to do things, we're not seeing the proposals, so they don't have the opportunity or don't think they can do that. We see a lot more now of fish passage, which is the biggest, probably that and trout stream restorations are the two direct. The indirects are more the protect areas around lakes, which certainly has an impact on fishing, not directly. It's not like building a reef, but it keeps the fisheries viable versus not.
Yeah. But I would just like to, kind of from a planning perspective, be able to say, well, what are we looking for projects this next year, this next 3 years? So maybe that memo, if you want to call it, that goes out to our partners saying, well, these are the kind of things we're looking for the next few years, because we're trying to get things back in balance. Because again, I'm an avid hunter, I'm a bird hunter, a duck hunter, pheasant hunter. And so I like the stuff that I'm seeing in sort of prairie lands and that, great things. But to me, it looks like a big gap when I think about the people that are looking for, habitat improvements for the fishery standpoint, for walleye fishing, panfish fishing, in the state. So
That's a discussion we should have November, December, as we're looking at next year's call for requests.
Just what they do.
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Ted, I know you've had your hand up.
Chairman, back to what we were discussing earlier about the unexpended funds. I would really like to see, and I would not like us to spend time during the hearings reviewing them, but I would really like to see a description from each applicant of how and why the money from as far back as 2020 is unexpended and how that's going to be spent. If there's a $5 million balance, but 4 of that is being, we're negotiating an easement and we just haven't signed the paper. That's a lot different to me than, it's kind of a nice pot of money we're going to spend. I'd like to see our staff provide a form so things are consistent, where they can say, this is why that money, this is what that 2020 money was for. And it's encumbered, or we're in negotiation, or blah, whatever the reason is. I'd like to see that. And then the other thing I'd like to see, there's an awful lot of these applications have federal funds tied to them. And with the invasive carp, that I think Mr. Palmer, somebody asked that question about the federal funds. I would like each applicant that includes federal funds in their project to include a statement that's been verified of where that federal fund stands, where those federal funds stand. Have they been revoked? Are they maybe revoked? Have they been revoked and put back and revoked again? But more than just
Today?
yeah, as of 10 o'clock this morning, we think they're not revoked. No, but I think it'd be really helpful, not so much because of the leverage aspect of it, but because of, if there's a lot of federal funds, that might be the core part that gets the project done. And so I think, again, I'd like to see something prepared for us not just I think. And I in no way want to suggest you didn't give a good answer.
Sandy?
Twice a year, projects are required to submit a status update. And a lot of the information you're asking for is in those updates. They're due August 1st. And so I will read all of the reports and provide a summary to the council at that time. Keep in mind that this is a snapshot in time. What they're reporting in August 1st is going to be different than what they have in their proposal. And I provided the council more of a higher level of who has their stuff done and where everything was at in a previous memo. And I was planning on updating that memo because we've gotten several final reports and things that have come in and people have closed out. And then the federal funds is very easy data thing I can pull from the database to find out who has them, how much they are they committed, what kind of commitment they are, and I can do a report for you on it.
So there's a difference in the proposal request. There's different, so there's the leverage that they're guaranteeing versus leverage that they think they're gonna get.
Right, so if they clicked in the online system that they got federal funds, then there's additional questions that are asked that are not showing up on your proposal.
Okay.
Like, what did they get? How much? Is it in kind? Is it a dollar amount? Do they have a letter from the feds? And then I can put that summary together for you
Okay.
in project proposal order.
So we can get that as part of the prep for our August hearings. And then you can ask proposers additional questions as seem appropriate.
And I fully realize the answer today may be different tomorrow, so we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
With the Conservation Partners Legacy Grant Program, is that amount predetermined as a percentage of the total, or
No.
how is that amount determined?
We determine.
We determine that, okay. I was wondering, after Darrell's talking about fisheries, it would be helpful if the DNR, as they present that, could provide us with a little bit of insight into the areas where that's going. Because my sense is that some fisheries could be under that small grant program too, given local lakes, but I was just curious about that.
Can we ask EPL to give us a summary?
Yep.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
It'll be a historic look
Yeah,
back, not a forward look.
It'd be
but
good to
it-
know what kinds of projects.
Where are the categories?
Yeah.
I'm kind of working on a pie chart, trying to steal data, saying, where's the money gone for the last 15 years? Are we achieving the goals of, doing all things for all people in the course of 20 years or whatever? So.
And we will, when we get to the allocation, be able to look at, is it enhancement, restoration, protection? Is it in this region or this region or this region? Because I see part of our job is to make sure we're not neglecting a part of the state. We need to make sure that the Southeast is not forgotten in favor of the prairies. Because there are pressing conservation needs everywhere. There isn't enough money, as we know.
The urgent project.
Any other questions? Did I miss anyone online? We have a motion.
Just have a quick clarification question. So for WRE 01 and WRE 04, you'd said to combine, do you actually want both budgets to total the added
Yes.
together in just one?
Bring a combined proposal.
An entirely new proposal.
You can call it WRE 1A or WRE 37. Bring us one proposal. If you would be willing to do that. All right, Tom, will you call the roll?
Can you repeat the motion one more time?
Sure. The motion is to hear all projects except 01, 02, 03, which we will discuss in October, and to combine WRE 01 with WRE 04. So to have a total of 54 projects that we hear at our August hearings.
Thank you.
All right, Tom?
Members, starting with number 4 on our list, Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Burkle, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Her.
Yes.
Senator Her, aye. Koharski.
Aye.
Koharski, aye. Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Palmer.
Aye.
Palmer, aye. Saxog.
Aye.
Saxog, aye. Suss.
Aye.
Suss, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Hartwell.
Aye.
Hartwell, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 11 ayes, 0 nays.
Great. So we'll see all of you, I think, in the end of August. We'll get a slightly revised schedule out, but we'll start probably at 8:15 instead of 8:30, try to combine the time. And I might cut lunchtime down from an hour to 45 minutes. And what you will see is that those of you that have gone through this before, some projects will come in and they only need 5 minutes. And others, there'll be questions and they'll run long. And my job is kind of to know when to say enough is enough. And to allow variation to some degree. And that's what I'll attempt to do to keep us more or less on schedule, but prepare for 2 long days. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members, just to let you know, we've been receiving some responses to your comments and questions from some of the project managers, or some of the proposers. So we'll be I just got some again, I think yesterday. So rather than send them out, we're going to wait till after this meeting and then we'll accumulate them and send them to you. So 2 things with that. Number 1, if there are program managers or proposers who want to provide those information on the comments to the members, get that to staff because by Wednesday. So hopefully beginning of next week, I'd like to get that accumulation of answers to the members. And the other thing is, members, if you have other questions, please get them to us because we can get those to the proposers before the August meeting, have them provide written answers to your questions before then, or just alert them to those questions so they have that in their proposals or for the hearings themselves.
Okay. We had no request for public comment. So with that, unless there's anything anyone wants to bring up, we're adjourned. We'll see you all end of August.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I actually get out your way quite a bit. What's that? I actually get out your way quite a bit. Yeah, we have a little postage stamp piece of land just off of Hawk Creek north of St. Sacred.